Canaan, Vermont. Things were different this season, no doubt about it. On this drizzly October day, there was no crisp air. It was warm and humid. The foliage had long since turned, and the ephemeral colors of autumn were fluttering dully into the dark, wet side of Canaan Hill, where the dog had once been so eager to dive into the briar thickets and alder runs. Now he seemed indifferent. The dog knew the pleasures of the guns and the thrill of running on the warm scent of nervous partridge and woodcock, but today he hadn't really wanted to leave the warmth of the car, and the rain he'd loved so much now seemed just another aggravation. He seemed to have forgotten how much he liked the hunt. The hunter wondered again if he had done the right thing. It was clear the old dog's hunting days were at an end. He was nearly deaf, he suffered from arthritis in his hips, and his kidneys were a problem. But it was one last chance. Perhaps the dog would enjoy it. Maybe out of simple respect and admiration and the love of a life spent so close together, the hunter owed him one last visit to the marvelous uplands of the Northeast Kingdom. The dog was 14, nearly 80 in human terms, and the hunter had no expectations. It was probably too much to ask, sending him into the ruggedly thick forest of pine and birch in search of birds. But they would try it anyway. When the three hunters moved away from the cars and off into the thin forest at the margin of the old orchard and the alders above the road, the dog had simply fallen in behind, keeping his own pace. There was little noise from the miniature cowbell on his collar. After a while, the power of his bloodline took over and the white-muzzled old Brittany moved ahead, hunting off into a bit of a swamp where he ran right over a woodcock. The old dog had missed it cleanly. It wasn't clear if he could have scented it, because the wind, baffled by the thickness of the cover, was swirling in lots of directions. The hunter pondered. The bird leaped into the air, peeping up through the alders, and 2 guns fired, crumpling it abruptly in a burst of feathers and sending it somersaulting wildly through leaves and branches before thumping hard to the ground. The old Brittany charged forward through the alder whips to pin the bird. Head up, he scented and looked, but he seemed confused. Nugget, the big golden, rushed in, and without hesitating, pulled the little bird from under some scattered and broken branches and leaves and took it to Charlie. "Well," the hunter said to the old Brittany, rubbing him gently under the chin and around his neck, "you've aged a lot in a year, and maybe you've forgotten what this is all about." That's okay. He wasn't sure the dog could hear him because of the growing deafness, but he patted him gently as they started off into the cover again. The old dog ran ahead, moving quickly now and with obvious purpose, memories of so many years in the uplands apparently flooding back. He quartered enthusiastically, the bell tinkling regularly as it marked his location in the cover. Breaking back to the right, back into the little swamp 100 yards or so from his first find, he slowed, tail flagging carefully, and held at last in a staunch point. Another woodcock. Before the hunter could reach the dog, the bird flushed, and Charlie, walking well to the left, took it quickly. The 3 hunters walked on to where the cover opened up into a thickening ground cover of juniper bushes. There were no more birds here. Before long, they were back at the cars. The hunter beckoned the dog in, but he wasn't interested and instead dropped chest first into a pothole of muddy rainwater, one of dozens in the narrow tote road. He obviously enjoyed its coolness, but not its flavor, as he did not drink it. In a minute, the hunter gestured again, and the old dog, shaking off water and mud, went to the back of the station wagon. The hunter opened it, but the dog, try as he might, couldn't jump up. His old legs couldn't do it anymore. The hunter bent down, picked him up, and put him gently into the crate in the back. He gave the dog a long, cool drink of fresh water from the jug in the back, and then closed the door. There was really nothing special about the old dog, except, of course, his loyalty. He was an average hunter from an average pedigree in Southborough. He had pointed so many birds and made so many really outstanding retrieves over the years that he could be forgiven his imperfections. After all, perfection did not count nearly as much to the hunter as companionship. And they had been good companions. The hunter gave the resting dog another biscuit. Both knew, in a way, that this adventure was special, that their trips to the woods were ending. Both had to try it one more time. The hunter wondered, as he often did, if the dog enjoyed the same sights and sounds and smells of the October uplands. He thought so. The party drove on to another covert, an uphill walk through another abandoned orchard. The cover was thicker here, but the old dog charged into it, excited now by the birds and the shooting and the loud voices of the hunters. There was no holding him back now. Head high, the dog bolted ahead through the weather-wrecked woods, ducking into every blow-down, oblivious to the raking of the briars and unforgiving hawthorns. They hunted a long way, maybe a half-mile, most of it uphill. As they were coming to the end of the woods, to a place where a road cut through and they would turn back, the old dog began to make game, to lock on to the telltale scent of game birds, but he seemed unsure, confused. "What do you have?" the hunter asked. "Where is it?" Scent was here, then there. The dog was unfocused, unable to pin anything down. It had happened plenty of times before, but then the dog would sort it out and make a solid point. Most likely, thought the hunter, the birds were running. The covert broke off into another patch of low junipers, and the hunters stopped, sweating, to rest. The old dog continued to hunt hard, tail flagging excitedly, but was still unproductive. Then, explosively, two partridge whirred from an edge of the junipers. The hunters, startled, weren't ready. The birds escaped easily into the deeper forest to the right. The old dog watched intently for a moment, steady to the flush, just as he had been taught. But then he simply flopped gratefully on his belly in a patch of cold, wet earth. The hunters continued on, then swung to the right, hoping to jump the two birds they had flushed from the junipers. The old dog was very tired now and fell in behind again, just keeping pace. Nugget swung into the center from where he had been hunting on the left. Suddenly, he hunkered over and his tail began to flash. Charlie was ready when both birds jumped from the low brush. He doubled them and Nugget made a textbook retrieve, first one, then the other. The old Brittany sat in the wet grass, then sprawled out on his belly again. He was struggling to even stay on his feet and reluctant to move on with the hunters. He stayed back, and the hunter stayed with him. "Okay," he said to the dog, "I understand. We're not doing too well out here. Time to go home, right?" The other hunters went on, while the old dog and the hunter turned back down the hill toward the car. It was about a mile, and they walked slowly, stopping every little while for the dog to rest. The hunter heard more shooting and looked back. The old dog paid no attention. They continued down the short distance that remained through the orchard to the car. The old dog and the hunter knew this was the end for both of them. There would be no more hunting. The hunting, even though he loved it, was just too hard now. His hips hurt. He couldn't remember what to do. He couldn't smell them anymore and wasn't sure what to do when he did. Before they got to the car, they sat on the edge of the road that ran into the orchard. The hunter was tired too. He was sweating and a little uncomfortable in the warm, drizzly rain. He reached over and stroked the dog's head. They had tried to capture the past, but it was not to be. The old dog was just too old. The hunter was too, and he wondered for whose benefit this outing had been. He decided they both had gotten something out of it. He took the dog's head in his hands and rubbed it softly. He ran his hands around the silky white and orange throat. He sighed and felt deeply for the old Brittany. From the time the dog was 6 months old, the two of them, friends and partners, had stalked woodcock and partridge in the Northeast Kingdom, in Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. They'd had so many good times together. And now? Well, they would have to settle for friendship, which was really the whole idea in the first place. He smiled at the dog, gave him another biscuit, and closed the door of the wagon. The hunting was over, barely 2 weeks later, on a cold November afternoon, after his health had begun to fail with accelerating ominousness. The dog was put to sleep. His legs hurt, and he couldn't climb stairs anymore. His kidneys were failing. He'd curl up in a ball and sleep that way for hours on end. The time had come, and so the hunter, his wife, and his son, the three of them, took the dog to the vet and stayed with him while he received his final care. At the end, holding the dog gently in his arms, he ran his hand down the dog's back. "Goodbye, old pal," he said. "Thank you for your friendship." And the tears of his appreciation flowed freely at last. Republished with permission from Canaan Hill by Spence Conley, 2003. The Upland Almanac, Winter 2003. 2003 by Spence Conley.